Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're going to be talking about Gregg Popovich and new head coach or interim head coach, Mitch Johnson. But before we start, I want to say I have no intel besides what you guys have. And the most recent thing we have is San Antonio Express news journalist Tom Osborne said that it's not like it's like not a health concern, but it's more that he's tired and he needs rest. I mean, the guy's 75 years old. It's crazy to think that I'm 24, my dad's 70. Either way, I wanted to talk about today, it seems potentially that Gregg Popovich might have pulled a Tony Bennett, like the Virginia Cavaliers coach of the University of Virginia did this year, and handed the job off to his assistant Sanchez. Here we have Mitch Johnson, the 37-year-old from the University of Stanford. So before we start today's video, do you guys agree with me? Is this like a trend that we're seeing in college sports go into the NBA? Where obviously Gregg Popovich is 75, but we saw Mike Krasinski, we saw, Coach Wright, Jay Wright at Villanova. We saw it with, the rest of the guys in college. So it seems like Gregg might have been there. So let's get right into it and let's talk about it. Gregg Popovich, a sudden health issue has triggered obviously some deep conversations within the NBA community about the future leadership of the San Antonio Spurs. Popovich, who has accumulated 1,390 career victories and an additional 170 postseason wins, has been synonymous with the Spurs' identity since 1996, leading the franchise to 5 NBA titles. Obviously, his influence extends just beyond the court. He's shaped multiple generations of players, coaches, through his basketball intelligence and his focus on development and fundamentals. With Popovich now facing a potential reduction in his active role, as from what we know, he's sidelined indefinitely from the report that Shams Charania put out and my coworker Michael Scotto, the team said. Now, assistant coach Mitch Johnson has stepped up into the interim head coach role. And obviously, Popovich's absence was felt keenly when he didn't travel with the team for their games against the Los Angeles Clippers and the Houston Rockets following their victory against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Reports confirmed that Popovich experienced an undisclosed illness, leading many to question whether this could mark the beginning of his transition away from active coaching. While Popovich's status is officially described as needing rest, this situation draws attention to the possibility of a significant shift in the Spurs coaching hierarchy. The Spurs are in the midst of a pivotal season, aiming to take a jump, like a developmental step forward from the 28-60 record they had in 2023-24 in Victor Wembanyama's first season, where they ranked 23rd in points per game with 112.1 scored and 24th in points allowed per game, giving up 118.6. They had a net rating of negative 6.4, which kind of shows how they had some defensive struggles and inconsistency last year. Despite that, obviously the team has shown so many flashes, largely centered around Victor Wembanyama being a phenom. He last year averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, and almost 4 assists while earning Rookie of the Year and finishing second place in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Now, Mitch Johnson is a 37-year-old who represents the younger, modern breed of NBA coaches who are equipped with the adaptability and analytical mindset needed for today's game. Like, the guy's a Stanford graduate, for crying out loud. It wasn't a one-and-done guy. He got his degree. And Johnson had briefly played pro ball, even in the G League, for the Tulsa Sixers before transitioning into coaching. He joined the He joined the Spurs coaching staff in 2019. Obviously, he's been learning under Popovich, gaining that valuable insight, and this nuanced approach that has defined San Antonio's success for nearly 3 decades seems to continue even if Gregg Popovich is gone, the way they're handing it off. Johnson's familiarity with the Spurs system obviously positions him as a logical successor. His tenure as an assistant coach has coincided with an era of rebuilding development, where the player growth was prioritized over immediate results. Johnson's coaching philosophy is deeply rooted into the Spurs' tradition of unselfish play, defensive discipline, and fostering young talent. Under Popovich's mentorship, Johnson likely absorbed the importance of fundamentals, adaptability, balancing the methodological, fundamental strategies with a more dynamic and modern approach. And obviously, Mitch Johnson's record as an interim head coach remains minimal, and his initial impressions suggest he can maybe even effectively steer the team in Gregg Popovich's absence and beyond. During the current season, the Spurs have started 3-3, showing notable improvement on the defensive end, where they rank third in defensive rating as time recording this video of 107.4. This shift obviously is a potential sign of their defensive schemes working. Maybe they're the same ones that Pop have, or maybe it's a little tweaks that Mitch put in. And I think they're playing with a little bit of greater intensity, and it just all aligns with the principles of Spurs basketball. Obviously, Johnson's ability to handle the rotations and player development will be critical as the team integrates new young talent and veteran talent. Obviously, Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes are there, Barnes was a salary dump, but Chris Paul was designed to complement Wembanyama's sophomore season and is going to aid this young roster. Like, Paul's 39, and he's already been averaging 11.7 points and just under 9 assists a game, while Barnes is over here giving you about 12 points, shooting 55% from the field and 40% from three. So Johnson's capacity to blend these, guys together, as well as, having Jeremy Sochan, who's out here having a hell of a season. Can we give a round of applause to Jeremy Sochan that people just aren't talking about? And I really, really think it's crazy. 17.3 points, 8.5 rebounds, 13 points for Keldon Johnson, and this team has some momentum. Now, you're probably thinking, what's Johnson's coaching style and, what's the strategy moving forward? Obviously, to solidify his role, Johnson should emphasize a multifaceted coaching style that obviously incorporates the Spurs' traditional emphasis on ball movement, defense, and high basketball IQ with a more contemporary approach with an emphasis on offensive strategies. Like, the offensive rating is currently 25th in the league compared to their third best defense. They have 107.9 rating on offense. Obviously, I think implementing a faster-paced offense, similar to, the adjustments seen with Tony Bennett's approach at Virginia before his retirement, he helped unlock the team's scoring potential by bringing, the assistant coach Sanchez in. So integrating more pick and rolls with Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul, obviously, and Stephen Castle, and even pick and pops, as well as off-ball movements to create open looks for perimeter shooters, would modernize their attack and keep defenses guessing. Additionally, I think Mitch Johnson should continue fostering player development. Obviously, you have a hallmark player in Victor Wembanyama, but young guys like Julian Champagnie and Malachi Branham, who Malachi's averaging 9 points, Julian's averaging 8, all would benefit from more consistent roles and having the freedom to make mistakes and learn. I think Johnson's potential to be a more nurturer for such players and maybe having an easier time connecting with the players while ensuring that the Spurs' tradition, defensive standards, and fundamentals remain high while they still focus on the long-term success. I just think Johnson more than likely has the communication skills and the rapport with these younger players that shouldn't be overlooked. Gregg Popovich's strength laid in his ability to inspire loyalty and respect while demanding accountability. But he's a 75-year-old man talking to 20-year-olds. No offense. My dad's 70, but bro, come on. Sometimes. I love the guy. He's my best friend. But Johnson, known for his approachable yet disciplined demeanor, has already earned the trust from these players, as we saw Chris Paul praise for his handling of Saturday's game. Continuing to build on this trust will obviously be essential as he navigates potentially taking on more responsibilities. Now, long-term, as we look, if Gregg Popovich does decide to step into a part-time or advisory role or even just walk away, it would not only mark the end of an era, but it would also usher in a new chapter for the franchise. Not only the Victor Wembanyama era started last year, but they'd be the era without Gregg Popovich or anybody left of the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker days. I guess R.C. Buford's still there, but you know what I mean. Bring Chase Buford in, his son, who's a great coach. A little intense, though. Handing the reins to Mitch Johnson is signaling a commitment to continuity while embracing fresh perspectives, kind of like how Bill Belichick brought in Gerard Mayo to be his successor in Foxborough and with the New England Patriots. So obviously the Spurs front office, led by executive Brian Wright, will need to provide... Brian Wright's the guy in charge But RC's still there, right? Someone's going to tell me no. And I'm going to be like, no way, RC's gone. And I swear he's not. RC Buford, he's the CEO, so he's just promoted. Obviously, they need to provide Johnson with the support, with continue giving the right veterans and fostering a competitive environment. Obviously, for now, the immediate focus was Johnson to maintain the team's defensive progress while unlocking the offensive consistency. And maybe that's why they moved on. Gregg's stepping away. He realizes he can't coach today's offense. Maybe not. Should he prove adept at managing the challenges of head coaching, be a smart offensive mind, Mitch Johnson might be the long-term successor of Gregg Popovich. This transition could be modeled after Virginia's Tony Bennett handing more responsibility to Ron Sanchez, could offer a stable path forward for the Spurs while allowing Popovich to remain an influential figure while in a reduced capacity and enjoy retirement. Go into the Pat Riley route. That's it. Long-ass video. Huge news, to be honest, but I got to go to class and work.